Welcome everyone to the first Train Tuesday of the year. It is 2023, and a quick programming note. Yes, it's January, but it's also Central Illinois. So we're actually having tornadoes right now. So if the siren goes out and you lose me, we'll rebroadcast this at a later date. As you guys know, this part of the country can sometimes get some pretty good thunderstorms, and well, it can be a pain. It will knock out the power, and of course, the broadcast will end. So, in the event of a power outage, if we do not make it through the program tonight, rest assured we will do a rebroadcast of the show. Now, with that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, let's see who's joining us here tonight. I see George, Elenia, Jerry, Abel, Butch, Matt's Conrail Chicago Main Line, Anthony, Tim, Harold, Brody, JD Boyd, see Dylan, DG Model Works, Jackie, Glenn, and Kevin, just to name a few. We got about 84 guys on board right now. So glad to have you with us tonight. Now, if you're watching us live on the live stream, welcome aboard. If you catch us later on the YouTube channel, welcome. Thanks for finding us. Here every Tuesday, you can find out the latest about the pre-orders that we have for any given month. And while you're here, do us a favor. Go ahead and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell. That way, you'll be notified every time a new video comes out. Now, like I said, we're going to be talking about GP40-2s tonight. These are the Athearn Genesis GP40-2s. I know there was probably a few of you out there like, man, really again? Well, these aren't the same as last time. We've done some work on these. There's some additional lighting features that have never been offered on these, as well as some detail parts. And we're going to go talk about those in a moment. But for right now, what I want to do is I want to welcome you guys and do another round of shout outs. And let's see who else is joining us tonight. I've got Frederick, Gerald, and Steve. Brian Stackpole is in the house. I got Abel, Jamie, BNSF 9708. Late Night Model Railroad is here. Sid Myers, Harold, and Terry. And yeah, I saw the spammer too. I think I dispatched them. Keep me posted if they return. We'll do our best to get rid of them. So I guess that means that we're getting better at this because the spammers are bugging us now. So let's see what we can talk about tonight with the EMD GP40s. Now, of course, these are in the Athearn Genesis line, and pre-orders on these are open now. And you have until Friday, January 27th to pre-order one of these. Now, we did something a little bit different this time. We've got a couple of different options that we're showing you this month. Now, what I've got here, this is Southern Pacific number 3197. This was announced back in December of 2017 and subsequently delivered in 2018. But this will give you an idea of the GP40P-2s that we're offering in this run. Now, a little bit of background on the GP40-2 in general. By the early 1970s, many of the first-generation diesels were reaching the end of their life cycle. One of the most common replacement locomotives became the GP40-2. Now, EMD began production of the 16-cylinder turbocharged 3,000 horsepower engines back in 1972. These locomotives were developed for major service where higher horsepower and faster service were preferable. Now, a major feature for the GP40-2 was the introduction of the -2 modular electrical cabinet. For more than 40 years, the 40-2 has helped work mainline freights, locals, switching jobs, yard service, and helper service, and many of them are still in service today. So a testament to EMD's design going all the way back to 1972. Now, of course, this is the -2 of the GP40. We talked about what the -2 means. And of course, EMD did that to other locomotives as well, the 38s being one of them. Now, what are some of the features on this run that we're going to be detailing? Well, the biggest news is from here on out, depending on the prototype, and we'll talk a little bit about this tonight, they're going to have lit class lights. So if the prototype locomotive had lit class lights, then the Genesis model will as well. All of them, however, especially when you buy the DCC version with the Tsunami 2, they're going to have lit number boards. That's something that you guys have been asking for, and we're happy to deliver that on this run. Some of the other things that we're offering on this is coupler cut levers, train line and MU hoses, drop steps, unless otherwise noted based on prototype, MU stands, the nub style safety walkway tread, windshield wipers, lift rings, wire grab irons, walkway treads, sanding lines, and if you have the DCC version and it's appropriate for the prototype, lit signal lights and or beacons if so equipped. Bell placement is all per the prototype, the detailed fuel tank with fuel fillers, fuel gauges, and breather pipes, and Blomberg B or Blomberg M trucks with appropriate bearing caps, again, based on the prototype. Speed recorder unless otherwise noted, and there's a see-through cab with the windows and a full cab interior, perfect for you guys to fully detail even further. So we're going to start tonight talking about Union Pacific. Now these old veterans here, they've got quite a story. Two of the original three SP GP40-2s survived past the UP-SP merger. This was, of course, happened in 1996. Now, by this time, their paint was pretty well worn and faded. Before their full UP repaints, they operated in this patch form for a number of years. Here I've got Union Pacific number 1373, as it appeared in the early 2000s. It's former SP 7601, and this is going to be part of our Prime for Grime. So it's going to have the faded lettering, the short EMD front ditch lights, roof-mounted bell, and the P3 horn on the long hood. So again, Prime for Grime, you guys have been asking for these. I know there's a few SP fans out there that are probably cringing at these pictures, but we've got some guys that are modeling early SP, UP, 2000s. Now here's 1375, again, 2000s, another former SP unit, obviously. 7602, this one's going to have ghosted lettering in paint, which was common for this paint scheme by the time they became UP property. It's also going to feature the tall EMD front ditch lights, the frame-mounted bell, K3 horn on the long hood, and repainted battery box doors. So again, these are Prime for Grime. A lot of you guys love these Prime for Grime, and I don't blame you. A lot of the hard work has been done for you, just a little bit of more weathering. You've got yourself a great looking model. So let's make the SP guys happy, and let's show SP in its glory. Now, again, I know there's SP guys that like the Gothic font versus the speed lettering, but we've got a few different options here for you. Now, by the mid-1980s, SP had discontinued their commute service in the Bay Area between San Jose and San Francisco. This was in favor of a newly organized Caltrain. Since new Caltrain power was purchased, SP in turn converted some of their older commute motive power to freight service. All three GP40-2s were renumbered into 7600 all the way to 7602. They received larger fuel tanks and they had their steam generators removed. Still retaining their full front SP light package, these units received rebuilt front cab windows, which became common practice during this time. By 1994, only one unit was repainted into SP's speed lettering, as you see here. This is unit number 7600. This unit would eventually be sold off and rebuilt by Indiana Harbor Belt, while the other two remained in UP's road switcher fleet. So here we have Southern Pacific 7600 as it appeared in 1994, complete with the speed lettering, repaint, roof-mounted beacon, and that will function if you buy the decoder version. Front ditch lights, removed SP light package, and the horn's been moved to the long hood. Here we've got 7600, but in an earlier time. This is 1985, and it looked like this roughly till about 1994. This is the 80s version, so it's going to have the full SP front light package, the gyro light, and the red warning light. And all of that functions with the Tsunami-equipped, Tsunami 2 sound-equipped decoder. Coming up next is 7601. A 7601 is again 1985 on up. This is going to include the full SP front light package, the gyro light and red warning light. And again, all of these function if you get the version with the Tsunami 2 decoder. Now you can also get these in straight DC. You're going to have to figure out how to put the lighting features the way you want. But if you go ahead and buy the Soundtrack Tsunami 2 version, all that's taken care of for you. Here's 7602, same deal as the others. This is going to have the full SP light package. All of those light packages that we talked about, the gyro light, the red warning light, all of that will function in the DCC. So those are the GP40P-2s, former passenger locomotives. Now let's talk about the GP40-2. This is the standard GP40-2. Now this guy here, this is the former Chessie unit, now CSX. We offered these back in April of 2021 for pre-order. They just came into stock this past summer, last summer, early fall. Let's zoom in on a lot of these features that we've been talking about. Now, these are beautiful units because they're going to have the appropriate lift rings, grab irons, windshield wipers, horn placement, and of course this one has got the bell placement on the long hood per the prototype, sander lines. But what's unique with this run is actually going to include, if you purchase the Soundtracks version, it's going to include lit number boards. This is a feature, again, you guys have been asking for, so we're really excited to offer it again. And again, based on the prototype, classification lights. So let's talk about our first offering in the GP40-2s, and this is one that created quite a bit of buzz last Friday, was CSX. We had a lot of requests for CSX, especially its earlier days when the stealth paint scheme ruled the rails. Now, during the late 1980s, CSX Transportation modified many of their GP40-2s into slug mothers that powered RDMT. That's a CSX term short for Roadmate Road Slugs. Now, the slug is a term used for, in most cases, as a secondary locomotive that has removed or deactivated its prime mover, but kept its traction motors. The mother unit, at slow speeds, can produce enough power to provide electrical current to the other traction motors using the same amount of fuel consumption. The mother and slug combination can provide the power of two locomotives using a single diesel-powered unit. Now, CSX liked the results and modified many of their older GP30s and GP35s into RDMT road slugs, retaining their cab controls so they could still be operated in the lead position, but without the noise of the prime mover. Now, this is the first time that we've offered the GP40-2s, especially in the CSX, with the slug controls on the locomotive. This is all new tooling. Now, why'd we do that? Well, we know that there's another manufacturer out there that has offered GP30s, and we know at some point somebody's going to offer a GP35. Now, we can only surmise that they're probably going to make a slug out of those. If they do, now you have a slug mother to go with it. That just makes operations that much more fun, and hopefully that's something that you will enjoy as a CSX modeler. So the first one we have here, this is CSX 6427. This is a late 1980s, what they call the stripe repaint. It's going to have regular radiator fans, the mail slot battery box doors. Now, you've heard of the stealth paint scheme. This is one that railfans gave this paint scheme back in the late 1980s. This is a stealth repaint. It's going to feature regular radiator fans, regular battery box doors, and again, you're going to have the equipment, the newly tooled equipment, so you can have slug capability. Finally, another stealth for you, also late 1980s stealth repaint. This one, however, 6441, is going to have Q radiator fans, the mail slot battery box doors, and a large exhaust silencer, plus the nose toilet hatch. So all three of these, perfect for your late 1980s CSX fans. We had a lot of requests for these in our Athearn product suggestion email. So thank you guys for reaching out to us and giving us a heads up on what you wanted to see. And hopefully these will fit your needs. Coming up next, we've done the DTI before, but it was time to do the Star paint scheme. And a lot of guys really like this paint scheme. DT&I's last locomotive order was for the GP40-2s. They were numbered 422 to 425, and this was in late 1979. Now, they were painted in their new Bright Star logo. They were built for high-speed TOFC service. Notable DT&I options include xenon beacon, nose-mounted bell, and non-dynamic brake hatches. GP40-2 number 407 was part of the original order that was back in 1972. But it was repaired after a wreck in 1979, and it was repainted into the new Star scheme and put back into service. So we're offering 3 DT&I locomotives here for you. The first one here is 407. This is a 1980s, early 1980s repaint from the wreck. Now you'll notice too that since that is from the earlier order, this is going to have the chicken wire grills, small EMD plow, orange bell, and the small front anti-climber. So again, 407 was one that they ordered in 1972, featured the earlier paint scheme, got in a wreck, fixed, and repainted into what was then the current Bright Star paint scheme. Up next is 422. 422 is a 1979 on up locomotive. This is the last DT&I locomotive order. So it's going to have corrugated grills, the newly tooled xenon beacon with the bracket, large EMD plow, silver bell, and large front anti-climber. Now this is a great example about Genesis models. Just because they all came from the same railroad doesn't mean they're all going to look the same. This is a perfect example. If you were to park 407 and 422 beside each other, yes, there's going to be similarities, but because they came from different orders, they're going to have different features. Subtle features, albeit, but these are the things that our product developers spend hours researching to make sure that they're correct for you. And up next is 424, again, 1979. And this is that last order GP40-2. So it's going to have all the same features as 422. So you can run all 3 of these together. It's going to be pretty convincing because they all ran the rails about the same time in these paint schemes with these details. Another one that we got a lot of requests for, and that was Ontario Northland. Now, the Ontario Northland Railway is operated by the Ontario Northland Transportation Commission, part of the Government of Ontario, Canada. These were purchased in 2005. These are former Boston and Maine GP40-2s. They were repainted into this bright and vibrant scheme. A few of these kept their nose class lights after the rebuild, and the units have been seen operating in both freight and passenger service. Now, keep in mind, some of the locomotives that are offered in this run for Ontario Northland will have operating classification lights in DCC. There is one, however, that doesn't because it had them removed, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. So the first one I have here, this is 2200. This is what it appeared like in 2005 to 2012. Again, this is a former Boston and Maine unit, unit number 311, and it does still have its nose class lights affixed, meaning that if you get the Soundtracks version, those will operate. Up next is 2201. Again, same time span, 2005 to 2011. This is former Boston and Maine unit number 300. This one has a class lights removed. If you look carefully at the nose, you'll see that the artwork depicts that. So this one will not have working classification lights if you get the Tsunami 2 version. Finally, we have unit number 2202. Same time span, 2005 to 2012. This is former Boston and Maine unit number 304, and this one has retained its nose class lights. So coming up next, we packed a third style of GP40-2, and that's the EMD GP40-2L. Now, this is from a previous run that we announced back in April of 2021, and these actually came into stock in the summer, between the summer and fall of 2022, so not that long ago. There's probably still some on dealer shelves if you really want to find one of these. These locomotives, a little bit different than your standard Spartan cab. Sometimes these are called comfort cabs, Canadian cabs. I remember talking to guys that worked out east on these that were working for Guilford at the time. They would call them comfort cabs or Canadian cabs. I'm sure there's other names for them too. But these are a little bit different, and they're going to have a little bit different features depending on which version you buy. Now, here's a road name that probably surprised a few of you, but we wanted to do it. CGR, the Quebec-Gatineau operates the former CP line between Quebec City and Gatineau. And if you're Canadian, French Canadian, I apologize for my English upbringing. I'm probably not the best at speaking French. The line was acquired by Genesee and Wyoming in 1997. At one time, the railroad had operated 3 GMD GP40-2L locomotives of Canadian national heritage. Although one of them suffered a wreck in 2005 and has now since been used as a parts source for the other 2 units. We're offering 2 of those units. The first one you see here is 3014, and this is what it appeared like in 2005. It's going to have features such as the weed cutter rear plow, and something else I want to point out is this is the first time we've done this on this model. The Canadian cabs with their 3 classification lights, the red, the white, and the green. If you get the Soundtrack's Tsunami 2 version, those all function, and they will be separate functions. That's the first time we've done this. We're really excited about this. Now, if you go ahead and you buy the DC version, 2 of the 3 classification lights still function. However, they're going to function a little bit differently. If the locomotive is in reverse, the red light will be on. If it's going forward, the white light will be on. If you get a different decoder, you'll have to work on your own to get the mapping and things of that nature done. If you're someone like me that would rather just have it done for you, then the Soundtracks with the Tsunami 2 is the way to go. But that's the first time we're offering these like this. And a lot of guys have been asking for this feature for a long time. So we're happy to feature that this time. Here's number 3016. Again, this is going to be a standard EMD medium rear plow. A little bit difference in the paint and layout of this one, but these will look great on your layout, especially with those new lighting features. There's an old song that I used to love listening to in high school, and the words would say, "You don't know what you've got until it's gone." Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. Guilford rail system, really interesting rail system. They were known in my part of the world. You either loved them or you hated them. Regardless, they're gone now. They're part of CSX. Now, founded in 1981, Guilford Transportation Industries looked to form a railroad company by acquiring some of the various bankrupt roads in the Northeast. The Maine Central was acquired first, followed by the Boston and Maine, and then later the D&H. The Guilford roster was a veritable rolling museum featuring such oddities as ex-Maine Central U-18Bs, former AT&SF SD-26s, and former Norfolk and Western, former Illinois Terminal SD-39s. Some of the more reliable units on the roster were a group of former Canadian National GP40-2Ls, numbered in the 500 series and acquired in the early 2000s. Since then, the Guilford name has ceased to exist, being replaced in 2006 by Pan Am, and then most recently, CSX. Yet some of the Guilford-painted GP40-2Ls continue in service, wearing their 20-plus-year-old paint jobs. Now, this is the first time in the Genesis for us to include the Guilford scheme with the yellow reflectors. This is brand new. So these are 2005 on up. They're going to have the same features. They're going to be 3 in this group. The first one you see here is number 510. Here's number 514. And I personally remember seeing these units. You can keep these as they are. They pretty much were pretty well maintained because, again, they were good running locomotives. You could see them just about anywhere on the Guilford system. And then again, 518, a little bit different. You've got the American flag on the cab there, kind of a neat little detail to look at. Guilford would typically, within their numbering system, they would still notate either Maine Central or Boston, Maine, and when they still had the DNH, the DNH. These are Maine Central locomotives, but they're part of the Guilford rail system. Now, speaking of Maine Central, we wanted to do a legendary liveries, and this was based on your request. There's something about the Harvest Gold paint scheme that has a lot of folks really interested in the Maine Central, myself being one of them. Whenever I get tired of running the down on its luck Boston, Maine, I'll grab one of my Maine Central locomotives and cheer myself up. Maine Central was just a really cool railroad, really cool motive power, really neat paint schemes. Now, with our recent release of the several Maine Central models back in November, the team received a great deal of requests through our product suggestion email. And one of those requests was a GP40-2L. The Maine Central was a highly regarded railroad with an attractive paint scheme and has developed a loyal following over the years. Many Maine Central fans missed the railroad after the takeover of Guilford, but Athearn has the perfect solution. Presented as though the Maine Central had remained as an independent operating entity into the 1980s, these Harvest Gold GP40-2Ls will look right at home hauling freight from South Portland up to Bangor and points east. So there you have it. If you're not really into those Guilford units and you want to take a different path, this is what Maine Central might have looked like had they not been taken over by GTI Industries. We're offering 2 different road numbers on these. Here's number 270. And here's 277. And you know, these really look nice. So for you guys that really wish the Maine Central never went anywhere, there you go. These are going to be great models to add to your collection. Now, don't forget, like I said, all of these, if you buy the DCC version, are going to have lit number boards. You're going to have lighting features based on the prototype. So take a look at athearn.com, go to our new announcements page, and there's a PDF that you can download or open up and read in more detail of what is included on the DC versus the DCC. Now, the DC without sound, they are going to retail for $229.99. If you go with the Tsunami 2 by Soundtracks, they're $329.99. Keep in mind, that is full manufactured suggested retail pricing. Talk to your dealer for your price. Now, you have until Friday, January 27th to pre-order these locomotives, and I myself am pretty excited about a few of these in here. So with that, let's see what kind of questions you may have on these really brilliant locomotives. Absolutely. Would you accuse me of none other? Otherwise, I wouldn't be a real model railroader, would I? I'm always going to fanboy the stuff that I really like. So here's Terry Peterson with his review. And again, it is one of those paint schemes that is very divisive. I mean, I grew up at the time when Maine Central and Boston, Maine were still running the rails as independent companies. So obviously my thoughts on Guilford probably shared with Terry. But that's why we went ahead and got you some other roads as well as that legendary livery that I'm leaving on the screen here. No. Honestly, I didn't even know the guys were working on these. So no, I had nothing to do with these. In fact, a lot of the times, the guys don't tell me what's going on until a couple of months before I tell you guys. So no, this is totally on product development. I had nothing to do with this. John says the lit number boards are really the biggest seller for me. Working on updating my entire Athearn roster with the new Genesis models with them. Great, great feature. Thank you, John. It was folks like you that had contacted us. And, frankly, a lot of guys that are running DCC, this is a feature that they like. We had this feature back in the days when we had Genesis 2.0. And a lot of guys is like, hey, can you do this on the Jeeps? Can you do this on these locomotives? And we're slowly putting those into the Genesis locomotives, and this is one of them. All right. Looks like John in product development's out there catching anything that I have missed. So thank you, John, for your support. Let's see, what else have we got here? A lot of guys really happy with these. I'm going to go back a little bit. Joel, some things never change. I'm going to go back a little bit to see if I missed anything while I was switching screens. Late Night says this MEC unit, I must admit, looks really sharp. Yeah, it really does. For some reason, that those colors just work really well with that setup, and even though it never really existed, it's pretty convincing. All right, I'm going back further because I know there was a lot of pages I was covering while you guys were probably asking questions. A lot of good comments on the 40-2s. Like I said, there was a few folks on Friday that were a little disappointed that we're doing 40-2s again, but keep in mind that we are building products that you guys are asking for. So if the Athearn product suggestion email is filling up the inbox with GP40-2s, and you guys want lit number boards and you want CSX with slug capability or Ontario Northland, then obviously we're going to do those. We want to produce things that you guys want. Donnie was saying, I like the chicken wire grills. Yeah, that was an early feature when EMD first came out with the 40-2s. If you look at late 40s, just standard GP40s and early GP40-2s, at first glance, you might be fooled into thinking it's a 40. They had the chicken wire grill early on in production. Somewhere midway through production of the 40-2s, they went to the standard grill like you see here. And that's one of those things that product development always has to watch, because unlike a car, let's say you have a Chevy Silverado. You might have a 2021 Silverado, and then your neighbor has a 2022 Silverado. And there might be some small differences. That's how the automotive guys change things. Whereas EMD and General Electric, they'll do things on the fly based on their customer feedback and just because of how the locomotives perform out in the real world. So they don't really have a hard cutoff on years or things of that nature. They'll just do running changes as the locomotives are in production. All right, going down to some new comments, new questions. Rodney wants to know, any Rio Grande GP40s coming? Not in this run. These are 40-2s. Nothing like that in this run. Maybe in the next one. Let's see. No Kansas City Southerns in this run. Not this time. If you guys see something or you don't see something that you want, again, go over to our website. That's athearn.com. Go to contact us. Select the email that says Athearn product suggestions and shoot that in there. Now, I have to personally laugh every time I'm, perusing social media and somebody says, Athearn doesn't read those emails. I'm sure if John's still on here, he's laughing too, because he reads those emails. He gets emails every day through there. So yeah, we are listening to you. This is just one of the many ways that we listen to you. And we do thank you for the guys that have used that email, because if it wasn't possible, it wouldn't have been possible without your input. All right. Anthony's saying, are you going to have samples at Amherst Gym? For the 40-2s, probably not. Now, that's a good reminder, though. Athearn is going to be at the Amherst Railroad Show at the end of the month. It's hard to believe it's only about 3 weeks away. Myself, Mark, and John are going to be there. So get a good chance for you guys to talk to any three of us about anything Athearn. If you've not been to the Amherst Railroad Show, do a quick search on the internet. It's probably one of the biggest train shows in the United States, maybe even North America. 4 buildings just filled with everything you can think of model railroading. In fact, there's even prototype railroads there. So come on out for that. It's a 2-day event. It's the end of January. I believe it's the 29th and 30th this year. And again, there's going to be 3 of us from Athearn there. We'd love to talk to you in person. And we're going to have some stuff there for you to show, stuff that you haven't seen yet. And we may even have a new announcement for you too. So check that out. All right, I've got time for one more question, and then I'm going to let you guys get back to your model railroad layouts or whatever's on your workbench tonight. All right. So I see some comments about some back orders. Yeah, we've had some ETA issues. We're still having some shipping issues. Now, another thing too that I want to let you guys know is right now where our factory is, COVID is running rampant, unfortunately. There's a lot of lockdowns right now. So that is really slowing things down. I want you guys to know what's going on. That is why there's some delays. And of course, we still have some shipping delays here stateside. So we're trying our best to get those ETAs to where we originally said, but please keep in mind, just due with everything that's going on in the world right now, there are going to be some slowdowns. And we'll keep you posted. I try to watch social media, and anybody that asks a question, I try to answer it as quickly as possible. But you can also go to our website and look up that product, and we'll give you an ETA. It's a rough ETA depending on how far out production is, but it's an ETA nonetheless. All right. Well, with that, I am going to let you guys get back to working on the layout, working whatever's on your workbench. Now, remember, you have got until Friday, January 27th to go ahead and place your pre-orders for anything that we talked about here tonight. I want to thank you all for coming on board tonight, and thank you that we didn't lose power tonight. It looks like the storm finally blew over, so we're all good. I'll be back next Tuesday. We'll be talking about some more items, a little bit from Genesis. We'll be talking a little bit of HO and N scale. So until next time, I want everybody out there to be happy, be healthy, be safe, and above all, do some good modeling. Good night and high greens.